everyone, welcome back to Beyond Evolution, where we help you navigate AI's impact on humanity. I'm Jess, your co host, here with Mario, and our mission here at Beyond Evolution is to help you reclaim your energy and thrive in a tech driven world to make the most of what AI can offer without losing sight of what makes us human. Today, we're joined by someone whose work deeply intersects with the emotional and social side of technology, Max Stossel. Max has been named by Forbes as one of the best storytellers of the year, and he's also the founder of Social Awakening, an organization dedicated to helping people create healthier relationships with technology. He speaks globally about the attention economy, human connection, and how to live intentionally in the digital age. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Max, and he can give a quick introduction, and then we'll dive into the episode.
Hi, yeah, my name is Max Stossel. Thank you for having me. About 10 years ago, I left the tech industry and helped to start an organization called the Center for Humane Technology. If you've seen the Social Dilemma on Netflix, it's featured a lot in that. We were getting all these emails and questions basically saying from parents and teachers saying, what the heck do we do about this whole smartphone and social media thing? And I thought maybe my perspective could be helpful. So I've spent the better part of this decade going around kind of school by school, community by community, trying to lend a hand in that regard. And yeah, the way I approach it is really to kids, trying to give them just their own perspective of, hey, do you actually enjoying this? Is this working for your own relationships and lives, and helping them think a little bit more for themselves and help educate parents on just like what's really going on these platforms? What are these platforms? How do we look at this from a developmental standpoint? And yeah, I've probably now spoken with hundreds of thousands, maybe a million, I don't know, people on these subjects. And I'm in around 50 or 60 schools a year, and that work takes up a whole lot of my time. And then on the other side of my world is storytelling, some of which overlaps with technology, but really that's getting on stage and telling stories about whatever I feel like telling stories about. And yeah, that's how I've arrived here today.
Awesome. That all sounds super great and super aligned, with what we want to do here at Beyond Evolution, merging technology and the human society and like how we can best work together. So I'm really excited to dive into this conversation. But first, I'll turn it over to Mario and we'll go through our mindful moment for the episode. That way we can really ground in this conversation and take away as much as possible.
Thank you, guys. Max, thank you so much for being here, man. I'm excited to get into everything you've worked on, what you're working on now, especially with Social Awakening. I think it's going to be helpful for adults and children abound, including myself, who's probably pretty addicted to my phone. But yeah, more importantly, I'm really excited to have you help others with just what you know about the problems that are going on in our society with social media and now with AI, the development of AI, which is only exacerbating the issues, I think. So yeah, I'm excited to dive in, but first we'll just take maybe 2 or 3 minutes to just kind of settle into the space together and release anything we need to release that we brought here today, and really just enjoy a few special present moments together before we dive into all the crazy, chaotic things that we'll get into talking about. Okay, so mostly kind of guide us into a little bit of a meditation. It's about 2 or 3 minutes, and I'll guide us in, and then we'll take a minute or so on our own just to kind of relax and be and release and arrive. So we'll start that now by just kind of getting comfortable in your seat. If you need to wiggle or move or shake or stretch, whatever you need to do to just kind of release any tension or stress, anything, that's stuck in your body from today, from this week, from the craziness of life and all the changes we're incurring. You can do that and then just kind of get settled into where you're seated. And to our listeners, of course, if you're driving, do not close your eyes and make sure you pay attention to the road or whatever you need to do. But I think the energy that we kind of enter here in this space is relaxing, and that's the entire goal. So if you'd like to close your eyes, you can do that now. And really just begin to settle deeper into this moment. You can take a few deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth just to kind of release what you don't need. release expectations and stress, thoughts. With each out breath, you can arrive deeper into this moment, into this space with us. And the whole point of doing this is really arriving back to our natural state of being, which is calm and present and open and compassionate. Just continue breathing at your own pace, focusing on the breath is the simplest thing to do. You can just remain in this state for the next minute or so, and I'll bring us out. At your own pace, take your time. Maybe move parts of your body, stretch the neck, whatever you need to do. Open your eyes when you're ready, and we'll get started.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Mario. Very relaxing, and I feel very grounded and present in this moment. So, with that, let's hop into the conversation. So, Max, kind of going back to your origin a little bit more. I see that you've worn many hats, besides the Center for Humane Technology and the storytelling that you have. You're also, a poet, a filmmaker, social impact advocate. What's the story of how you began exploring the intersection of technology, storytelling, and human beings?
I'd say the way they came together most, and they don't always feel like they come together in my life. It often feels like I'm doing two different things that, of course, have shared values. But they most came together when I first met Tristan Harris, who was working on, starting this organization and trying to spread these ideas. And one way that I knew how to support was I was like, I was inspired and wrote a poem about the subject, and I turned it into a video, and that went, pretty viral and spread around the internet. It's like that was a way that I knew how to contribute and dedicate energy to that movement. And that was called "This Panda Is Dancing," and it's still out there on the internet. And gets a lot of people say nice things about it to this day. It was 2016, so it's a while ago now, but sadly, the message I think still mostly applies. And yeah, that was how I'd say they most came together and merged. And then because I do this work, sometimes people would like just sort of describe me as, oh yeah, Max tells stories about technology, which to me is like, that's one thing that I tell stories about. And it's probably one that has gotten the most attention from the public. But to me, it's just one subject that I'm passionate about because it influences human behavior in such deep and meaningful ways.
Awesome. So from, I guess, that foundation, what has flourished from that? Like, what have you built from beginning as a poet and a filmmaker, from that one video that you just mentioned? How has that developed you as a person?
I mean, I think that video led to a lot more of my involvement with the Center for Humane Technology, and that birthed like a lot of inbound interest in schools and speaking, and so it's come together in that way. But I also think like for the most part, dots make sense when you look backwards and connect them. But when you're in it and going forward, it wasn't like I'm going to do this, which leads to that, and here's how these things connect. Just kind of following, trying to do the next thing that feels right as a way of applying my energy towards the world in ways that feel good for me. And it's sort of developed into these two paths that sometimes intertwine.
Very cool. Can you give us a little bit more of a background on what the Center of Humane Technology does?
Um, yeah, what they were founded to do was to realign technology and humanity, and it was some of the first sort of whistleblowers inside of tech that were speaking out about with concern about where the direction that tech is taking. Now I think they advocate more for like policy change, which is less of my focus and part of why I've sort of stepped out more into doing my own thing. But yeah, they're I think mostly focused on how do we shift governments or laws, and I'm more interested in just like how do individuals change.
Gotcha. Was there kind of a specific moment where you realized technology was shaping human behavior in ways that either concerned you or excited you?
One of the stories that Tristan told that I think was most illuminating for me was talking about being in the room when Google decided whether email should give a notification or not. And then people were just like, yeah, it seems like it should. And they're like, okay. And then he was just like, well, like this just shifted the way attention flows for billions of people in ways that we're not thinking so deeply or critically or ethically about. And just recognizing the power of technology to make micro or macro differences in people's lives on a daily basis, I think was something that, especially given the mismatch of how much attention was being thought about that on a human level, was something that spoke to me in a deep way and I wanted to involve myself in.
Yeah, I can relate a lot to that because, as Mario was saying before, I feel like I tend to go on my phone quite a lot. And it's all attention, right? It's all you're giving your human attention to these companies and to these applications that bring your attention away from other things that you actually truly care about and that will bring value to your life, you know? And so I think that's really interesting that scenario that you had of Google introducing notifications for Gmail, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with for Gmail, that's really what sparked, this attention economy. Which do you think like back then they were even thinking about that whole side of things, or do you think it was just they wanted to send a notification to their people?
For the most part, within the tech companies, I don't think it's people maliciously sitting behind screens and thinking, how do we get them? I think it's mostly just thinking about improving the bottom line and how do we grab and hold more attention. And it's just not deep consideration or deep prioritization of what is actually important to people.
Hmm.
And that mismatch is challenging because the devices are slot machine-esque in many ways, and it can be very hard to put them down. And there's like a lot of persuasion that can happen when you don't actually see or have any idea what's going on in the people who you're persuading's lives, and that can be a recipe for things that are not so great.
Hmm. Definitely.
How do you think that, this whole rise of AI is shaping, like algorithms and influencing? I mean, is it just extending what you've already seen with social media, or is it kind of like pivoting in a big way? What have you seen with that?
In many ways, I think social media algorithms are our first kind of mass experiment with AI. It's algorithms that are machine learning algorithms that are using all the data that they could possibly have about us to figure out what next piece of content should appear in front of your eyeballs. And that's what it's optimizing for. It's not exactly just whatever gets the most attention. It's not constantly porn and explosions, but some version of what is going to work at grabbing this human being's attention, and how do we keep them coming back and liking and sharing and scrolling. And that's an AI algorithm being optimized for something that is not aligned with what our human values are. And I would argue that's really not going so well, both on a mental health standpoint, on a state of just like information and accuracy and large group cohesion. Like that's an experiment that has gone quite badly. Of course, there's some great things about social media. Of course, it's enabled lots of positives as well. I think it's easy to get lost in that, oh, it's good or it's bad. Like, as a whole, I think it's done things to society that we mostly wouldn't want it to do. And like, I'm in many ways less concerned about our interaction with the AI tools as they exist now, things like ChatGPT-esque or Midjourney and Dolly, things like that. mostly because our relationship with them is one, yeah, we're paying for them and we go in with an intention and the machine is trying to help us with that intention. And so it's much more of a tool relationship than we don't go into social media saying, how much time can I spend on this thing? And so that difference, I think, is significant. But we are seeing different types of trade offs that can be really challenging. I would say what social media has done to society in terms of like boredom, or we just have a down moment and all of a sudden this thing is out. We now have, instead of needing to talk to a human being, it's easier for many people to just open up ChatGPT and have that conversation with an AI bot. And so, what does that look like when the friction of needing to actually go to another human being for help is removed in that way? And you can get the answer to most questions pretty instantly without doing the work. And so, there's, I think, a big loss of process. And already, a lot of our, I think, education system and world system is so focused on outcome that it can be tricky to navigate that, but we're going to have to, I think, in this next generation, get very detailed and specific for what processes we actually want to learn and like get very clear on what is it that we're after. Because AI can be an amazing tool to help us learn things, but when it becomes the replacement to just get the answers to things and we lose all of the process of our lives and what we're doing and creating, I don't think that's a recipe for meaning. And so I think there is a similar scenario happening where a lot can be lost if we don't pay close attention to what do we really want out of using these tools. And yeah, I think for the most part, we're probably not using them that way. And I certainly would want to encourage more thoughtfulness and mindfulness in how and when we enter into these environments.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. We've talked a lot about AI and technological advances and social media's effect on mental health and information, and it doesn't look good. How would you say we can talk about policy and kind of like macro societal stuff all day. That's a long road, but like individually, how can our listeners know when our attention is being engineered and what can we do about it? Like what can we do from an individual standpoint about it? Because I know that seems like that's what you're more passionate about.
Yeah, I think it's almost always being engineered. And certainly, as soon as we go into the box, it's being engineered in some way or another. One mental trick that I think is very helpful and I like in my own life is just before reaching for it, just asking, do I want to make this trade right now? Anytime that we are reaching for a device, we are making a trade. Sometimes we're trading presents to try and get the answer to something. I like the example from Sherry Turkle in Conversation. She says, like we could look up in conversation, who's the actor in that movie? I could look it up and just have the answer like that. But what's traded in that process is us figuring it out together, is the laughs we might share in that, is the creative problem solving of it all. And so just sometimes we might just want to know. That's okay. But just intentionally making the choice of, do I want to make this trade? And I think the same with AI. Like, I am personally happy for AI to do contract type reading and writing for me. I really don't want to do that. And it's long and boring and a type of thing that I don't find valuable in my own life. I'm really happy to make that trade. I'm not happy to trade my creative writing to AI in that process. I'm something that I really deeply value the process of. And so I think just even that one question of, do I want to make this trade? And just adding that into our lives is very helpful. I like it in social scenarios as well, of like, often you've probably noticed you'll be with friends, something comes up and it's like, oh, let me look that up. Just rather than let me look it up, just saying, hey, before you do, do we want to? Do we want to look it up? Do we want to make that trade? Just like adding that social friction, I think can be quite nice.
Yeah, like can we just enjoy being human for a moment and like see if we can remember with our brains?
When that's what we want. And yeah, my fiance's dad was actually telling a story of how, I forget what it was. It was something about sports, but they were thinking, it just like was asking some question and someone looked it up and just shared the answer and how he felt shortchanged. He was like, what? Like, I wanted us to figure that out together. And now that's just done.
Yeah. I definitely don't want to be a pessimist, and most of what we do in our podcast comes out to instill more hope in people, but it seems like this is kind of a steep hill to climb for humanity, when we zoom back out to the bigger picture. Like, we're talking about choosing the harder path and making yourself work more and your brain work more, instead of when we're human, we're designed to go towards the path of least resistance. So Do you have any response to that, or yeah, maybe bring us back to the positive?
I think it speaks more to our lack of like alignment and values for the most part, because I don't know about you, but for me, when I really care about the thing and like when I feel like I know where I can apply my energy, when those two things are there, I don't mind the work. Like when I feel like I know how I can go about it, I know what I can apply myself towards, and I'm passionate about this, I care about it. Work doesn't feel hard for me in that. Where work feels hard is when I don't really care about this thing or when I don't feel like I know what to do. Like in those two environments, I have aversions to work. And I think in those environments, it's very easy for AI to come in and just, replace where we put our energy with whatever sets of engineering are in front of us. But I hope that, yeah, that it can be more of, it can allow us to focus more where we actually want to spend our time. And I do believe, one of my biggest concerns, especially with the next generation, is how like is grit being lost, the ability to work at hard problems being lost because it's something that's hard enough as it is, and let alone with the ability to avoid just about every hard thing in a developmental process. I am worried about the influence of that on us, and I think as parents we need to be really okay ourselves with our kids struggling and okay with ourselves struggling, and like teaching the process of, yeah, we're going to figure that out. I do wish that I got more of that in my own life, and that is something that I hope to instill in the next generation.
Beautiful. Yeah, likewise. It's like, especially for men, and what I know about the male struggle with mental health, it's like the biggest struggle for men is being able to just sit in the struggle and in the anxiety or depression or, like confusion or unknown. So, there's a crossover there for what you're saying and what we know about what works for managing our mental health. So I think that's beautiful.
And even super intelligent AI, like that's really thoughtful, and ChatGPT does this decently now, I think, might say like, yeah, you might want to sit with this. Like you might want to sit with this for just like, and then actually taking it in and not falling to our own, okay, not sit with it, let me go find the next thing. But really recognizing that sometimes time is just a part of the process and being okay with that. It's
Right.
hard to do.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of what needs to happen with policy or with these AI tools is to not let you make it so easy for yourself, kind of like how they, if you ask GPT now about some injury, they're like, well, you should see a doctor, but here's what I think, So maybe it's like, well, the best course is, to sit with it and kind of have that like therapist background and knowledge about what's actually best for us. So yeah, I'm hopeful that we can instill more of that into these tools.
And I mean, that gets big brothery fast, where like the tech knows best as to what's right for you. And I think we're already shifting towards a lot of reliance on it. Certainly, I've watched people just be like, oh, let's go to ChatGPT knows the answer. And it's slightly different in Google, just in the sense that it will sometimes be not just wrong, but really confidently wrong. Like that didn't exist in the same way that when it was just Googling something or looking it up, but it'll give you just false information with all of the tone of, yes, of course, here it is, and here's why, and just making up stories in that regard. And I doubt that'll be the case for so long. I think it will be able to give very accurate answers, but I think tech from the back end needs to be really thoughtfully engineered if we're going to be trusting, like in terms of where we put our trust about it knowing what's best for us in terms of how we want to spend our time and live our lives. And I would much prefer that to be a collaborative process as opposed to it telling us what to do.
Absolutely. I think the takeaway for me, at least, is like, you said you were talking about the back end. I think the front end is like how we interface with it, right? And it seems like the most important thing to do to manage ourselves in this age of evolving AI is to manage our relationship with it and with ourselves first and foremost. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah. Both of those are the two big ones.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I guess, Jess, if you want to take over and kind of get into humanity meets technology.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of want to backtrack a little bit. Max, you mentioned like the process. Human beings need to develop processes of how we are going to be able to use AI in the best possible way. So, do you have any ideas or like solutions in mind that you can share with our audience here of like how we can best go about using that process, or how we can go about using AI, in a process that will benefit us as humans.
I think this mostly comes down to I like the way you phrased it of like that it's both a relationship with it with the tool and a relationship with ourselves. But I think a lot of that comes from just having a really clear relationship with ourselves. Like if we really know what we're wanting and what we're after, I think it becomes clear how AI can be a tool in helping us walk towards that. And yeah, like in terms of how to like what a process might look like for figuring that out for ourselves, I think it does. It starts to tread into like therapy-esque or self-awareness-esque territory where you're asking the question of like how do we know what we truly and deeply want? And that's a very complicated field that we're not going to answer for people over this format of us talking to each other in a room, and that varies very much from person to person. But I think like yeah, any work that we're doing on ourselves in a real way to get to know what is going on inside of me right now and how can I know myself better, I think would probably be the most effective way of trying to navigate this digital world.
Do you have any like favorite methods of, diving internal and being more mindful?
One thing that I found in my own life is for most of my life was very just mind oriented and mind priorities that just like thinking, emotions are fleeting and they come and go. They don't really matter. Like what matters is the logic. And I've really come 180 on that into really feeling like the mind kind of just spins and that there is deeper knowledge and wisdom that exists in the body, and trying to learn how to like listen, let feelings in my body make sounds, like talk if they want to talk, move if they want to move, and really trying to like get past the mind's blockade to find what is deeply true for us in the body. And then to me, what is deeply true for us in the body is true for us in the body. Like our bodies don't get to make decisions for other people's bodies, but we can trust completely and fully what is happening on a deep level for us, for our own lives. And then often when you look around in there, there's like a lot of voices. So it's a way of one thing that can be challenging is learning how to decipher what voice is what. What's a knee-jerk reaction? What's a deep truth? Like what's something that just needs to move and then it'll be gone in a second. And but learning that language, and I think people have different methods of going about it, and what's right for me might not be right for someone else. But that type of thinking, I think, is really valuable for growth.
Yeah, definitely. I think Mario and I can both agree on that, like doing like the inner work and just being mindful and having different tools that you can use to connect with your body and to silence the mind and to be observant, I think is just really important to connecting with yourself and making the best decisions for your human being. So, yeah, no, I think those are great ways to kind of be more mindful about these subjects, and especially using technology, how you can be mindful about using that.
And sometimes I think accepting it is harder than observing it. Like yeah, this is what's happening for me.
Hmm.
Like this is what's going on, and not needing to run away from that or reshift that or reshape that for it to be something that it's not.
Right.
And just actually accepting what's going on for us right now, I think can be some of the hardest part of that process.
Definitely. Like they might be able to observe, but they might have a reaction towards it, and really just sitting back and saying, hey, this is what is happening right now, and it's okay that this is happening. And I can move forward from it or move in any direction that I want to be or I want to go in is, key to kind of having that agency, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Now, I was just going to ask a question. Do you have anything else to add to that?
I was just going to think about like how that relates to AI. Like AI doesn't have felt experience or felt sense. Like that's not present in there. It's almost like it's pure mind, and it's a collection of so much incredible research and wisdom that has been done, and it has recollections and collections of so many human experiences and so much human information. But what it does not have is that felt experience. And I trust that felt experience inside of us more than I trust AI. Even in the same way that also like sometimes the answer isn't the answer. AI will be better than humans, is better than humans at finding like an answer, but just because it's right or factually accurate doesn't mean that that's what like your system wants or needs right now. And only you can know if and where that's true. And where I get worried about our resilience and grit is that if we're not able to like accept hard truths or be like, oh, like that's uncomfortable, but I can feel that that is what I need. Like if we're not able to take that in, then it's just very easy to spin ourselves in circles and yeah, and not be leading lives that we actually feel good about, which at the end of the day is what I want for people. Like I want people to lead lives that they really feel good about.
Yeah, no, I think that's an awesome kind of reflection on it. And I think truly now we have the opportunity to decide what AI is going to mean for humanity and what that means for our future. So I think it's really important for us to kind of come up with that definition and use it and follow through with that. Kind of going more into social connections. Like, what is your take on AI's impact of social connections? We've talked quite a bit about this on the podcast before of, people might turn more towards AI, when they have a hard question or they don't feel comfortable going to another person. So that could kind of detract from it. But do you have any other things that you would see beneficial, but also things that maybe might detract from society?
Yeah, one of my favorite uses of this was something my friend Monica did was she put her and her partner's like text conversations into GPT and was like, show me both of our blind spots. And I think that's a wonderful use of technology like that. And I think, and it's young, so maybe it'll learn in this way. But right now there's certainly like a sycophancy bias of the AI just like really being like, oh, yeah, you're great, you're the smartest, you're the best, like, oh, you're doing such a good job, which is nice in some ways. But depending on what the goal is, if the goal is deeper connection or deeper understanding, like, I think right now it takes really putting into AI being like, hey, like, don't just gas me up, like, don't just give me what I want to hear, like, this is how I'm seeing this, like, what might I be missing? And really treating it like, yeah, like it might be able to illuminate blind spots for us in conversation, I think is a beautiful use of that tool. And I've done that since of like in ways I'm trying to understand a conflict or things like that. Like what might I not be seeing? And um yeah, I've really enjoyed using it that way. And yeah, I do think it's in the way of I think the pros and cons and that it's in the way of turning to a friend for this stuff. I'm really nervous about that more with kids than with adults because like I don't want the pattern learned to be that like yeah, I have a problem. I just go to technology with this problem. It's too awkward, it's too uncomfortable to talk to a human about it. But for adults too, it's like there's magic that comes from all parts when we actually turn to each other with our vulnerabilities and our challenges. And so I don't know what it would look like to like make a pact to oneself that we're not going to just turn to AI about it, that we're also going to have the conversation with others and friends and loved ones about it too. Because again, that is harder. But I just really think it's a mistake to offload that completely. And I get nervous about what kind of features happen in that way too. Because also like the it's hard to explain this, but the error it's like AI updates and now all of a sudden it's relating to you in a totally different way. Like that's not something that would happen with the human. And so that's also a new interesting barrier that gets breached in terms of trust. Like, oh, we're talking to somebody about this thing that's important to us, and this is how we've been sort of going down this road. We have a shared history, a shared background with it. Boom, update that's totally unrelated to you. Now all of a sudden, totally new, different thing. You didn't clock that change, but that change happened on the other side. You could say that happens with people too. People learn new information, they have life experiences that change them, and now they're relating to you differently. But it's just there is something different about that to me. And I'm nervous about what gets lost in the human to human piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's huge. I feel like from what you're saying, it's like we almost need our own personal agreement with ourselves that is in alignment with our core values that says this is like how I think I should, connect with the software. And that's one of them is like, don't just go 100% of the time to ChatGPT, like call a friend, text a friend. Because when you were saying that, I could feel in my heart like how good I feel after I reach out to a friend about something I'm going through and we talk about it. And, you know, that's deepening of bonds. That's like growing of love and experiencing such a beautiful human experience. And we're kind of like robbing ourselves of that if we just go to GPT and get the cold, clear, most precise answer.
Yeah, maybe it's something like, I'm just making this up now, but never three in a row. Never three straight to GPTs before checking in with another human being,
Hmm.
like in
Love it.
terms of an emotional problem.
Yeah, agreed. And kind of to comment on that, like, I truly think everything in this world is a relationship, right? It's your relationship to food, it's relationship to human beings, it's relationship to technology, it's relationship to your work, you know. And it truly comes down to how you want that relationship to play out in your life and how strong of a bond you want to have with it, you know. And I think I personally like would love to have stronger bonds with the people around me, you know, and less strong bonds with the technology that I'm using, you know, but again, it comes back to the person themselves and kind of just like sitting there and understanding where they're at and creating that relationship consciously for themselves.
Yeah, use tech to do the boring stuff you don't like to do.
Yep.
Spend the other 80% of your time connecting and living life. I mean, that's, you know, we've talked about that a lot with entrepreneurs, the 80/20 rule. Same thing goes here in general.
Mhm. Exactly.
It is very helpful for relationships, though. I've consulted it many times, uploaded conversations, and been like, I'm trying to, you know, work through this, and it's like, well, you're being a little harsh and abrasive here, and this is how you can reword it. And then I send it. And it's all. I mean, it's always better to not respond from that hurt, you know, or whatever it is.
It
We,
also, I mean, it depends on the value again of like if that's what you want in that scenario. If it's like, oh, I want to be softer in my communication, or is it like, no, I want to be hard in my communication. Like this is what I want, right? You get to choose. But like it's where it's interesting how the biases of what we're turning to end up influencing and what gets repressed or what resentment happens and with young people as well of if they're having GPT for all their flirting and conversations and dating apps and then show up in person unable to have a conversation, it's not going to be meaningful in the ways that count. And yeah, it's wild, wild west of figuring out how we relate to these tools.
Yeah.
it's like leveling up the, you know, the picture that doesn't actually match how you look now. It's like leveling
Yeah,
that up to like
yeah,
conversationally.
personality, and yeah, and that disappointment that people I think feel. It's like that's a two-way cut where it's like someone being like, "Oh, I'm experiencing in person something that does not live up to the computer version of it. That's no fun to experience. It's no fun to be perceived that way." It's like, yeah, let's not.
Yeah, awesome. So one thing that I'm curious, like, if you could go back, I don't know, probably a few decades, however far you need to go back to kind of like redo the early stages of AI so that we are in a better place and it has a more positive impact on people. Like what would be the ideal pieces of that puzzle or like the biggest changes you would make?
Yeah, I'll share what I give when people are asking about like what could better social media look like, because I think AI actually gets closer into what it could be. Often when people are like, I'm building a new social media app, like it's gonna be better, it's gonna have all the values aligned. I'm just like, heart's in the right place. I'm like, I just really doubt that anything you're doing is really thinking about it in ways that I would find to be valuable because like content is not a human need. Like scrolling is not a human need. Like it's inherently disconnected from what is the human wanting in this moment. And so what I would love and love to see brought back in is that intent and intention. Just like as you're even opening the tool in the first place, some kind of relationship of what are you here for right now? Like with social network, I would love a social network that was actually using all of its data and algorithms to help enhance social lives, illuminate new experiences that we later rate as were meaningful. And we're glad that we had them. Connect us to people that we later rate as I'm so glad that now this is a person in my life in X, Y, or Z capacity. If it's loneliness, what experiences were helpful for solving that loneliness in that moment? If it's I'm looking to be informed, like a lot of people say, hey, social media for the news, like even just news about what you're trying to learn. You're trying to learn about a specific thing. You're trying to learn about just learn in general. Like you want to learn about what? And then if you're trying to learn about this, what are the type of informations or the style of information that is most helpful and most actually accurate to helping inform you about an issue? That's a whole complicated layer of how you decide who says what is true and what really is information, misinformation, disinformation, etc. But that process being the AI is trying to help figure that out. This is what you're after right now. You're after educating, becoming more informed about a topic, putting food on the table. Like, what if the App Store was, instead of 5 stars, Candy Crush, super addictive, great app? Like, 5 stars for what? What is 5 stars for helping put food on the table? Like, sometimes the answer to these things won't be another app. It'll be walk outside, do this. Like, that needs to be a part of the equation too. But integrating it all with life is, I think, what is deeply missing, because it's also harder to measure. These engineers are mostly looking at, did they click this button? How many times? How much time did they spend looking at this app or this video? These are the easy to measure metrics. But I would want it to be much more qualitatively related and more long term, in terms of like, hey, last week you were feeling lonely and we suggested this. Like, how was that? Did that help with the loneliness? And then helping to build the data set that way, so that what we're creating is better and better data towards what the humans are actually looking for, and not just what buttons we're clicking.
Those are big changes.
Yeah, it's a fundamental shift. And I think it'll probably have to come from different tech companies than the ones that exist now, but maybe it won't. Like, I don't believe that anything Facebook integrates will actually be something like that. It feels possible that ChatGPT could do things of that nature, especially the ones whose business models are so reliant on how much time we spend on them, just usually are not going to be incentive aligned to create something like that.
Yeah, and that does seem to be the biggest cause of so much suffering for humanity, is that massive foundational misalignment between, that it's really easy just to label capitalism, right? Like leading to higher sales and profits over caring about the heart and soul of people.
And I actually, and, I'm biased here just because my dad is an intense libertarian figure and drilled that into me from a young age. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff, but one thing that I think is, I don't know that capitalism is necessarily the thing, because also I would very much pay for a product that operated the way that I'm talking about. Like, be happy to give my resources towards that. That would be extremely, extremely valuable to me. And I think something that it does seem like capitalism naturally creates in ways that I don't like are this like more, more, more attitude. But I think the enemy is more the more, more, more attitude than it is capitalism itself. And whether those are inherently intertwined with each other is a more complicated question. But I just do like to point out that I think there is a viable business model here within capitalism of, you're actually providing services that really enhance people's lives in this way. I have no doubt that there's a big market for that, as in some ways, like, it's what the podcast you're creating is about. Something that we're really solving that in a big way would be inherently very valuable. The challenge is right now that certainly a lot of the social media apps just aren't doing that.
I think like Instagram, or at least some of the social media apps, and maybe it's just the person that I am, but I think there's a growing amount of communities that are growing on these apps, and like in-person communities. They have online forums and that kind of stuff. But I think there's a growing, I guess, market of these new communities where you're meeting up with people in person based on similar interests and similar values and that kind of stuff. So I do see, the hope in me is seeing it's heading in the right direction. But I think, there's definitely a lot more where we can go.
You're saying Instagram has created real life meetups as part of its service?
No, I wouldn't say it's part of the service, but I think certain pages on Instagram or Facebook, they'll have events, or they'll have forums where they'll post events, and then they link to a sign up to that event. So it's not exactly from the social media, but it starts through there.
Yeah, people using social media to enhance more real world
Yes.
meeting up and connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's just helpful to get nuanced about what we're pointing to with that stuff, because yeah, like, that is a part where, of course, like, it's the internet being used to help gather people together in real life. Like, cool. Obviously I have no problem with that.
Mhm.
But I just think it's helpful to differentiate of like, oh, is Instagram doing? Oh, no, people are using Instagram. That is one way that people have found to using Instagram among the billions of ways that people are using Instagram.
Yeah, yeah, you're correct. I mean, like, it's not the company, it's kind of the individual itself. Yeah.
So I think we've covered a lot of good tips so far, but I want to ask one from one more informed angle about your view on this. So in one of your TED Talks, you said that some of the most brilliant algorithms that have ever been invented are essentially playing chess against your brain to try and serve you a version of the world that is most engaging to you. So obviously you've worked in tech and you know that how many billions of dollars are being invested to help keep us addicted to our phones. So based on all that you know and all that you've discovered on this topic, if someone listening today wanted to reclaim more of their time, focus, and energy in this kind of modern AI developing era, what is one small action they could take this week to do so?
The things that I think I have found most helpful in my own life, one is turning off all notification that's not from a human being trying to reach you. So, no, this person has liked your photo. No, happy holidays from this app. No, you haven't played this game in a while. No, this person is typing. Just like only if someone is actually sending you a message or calling you, let that phone be the only way your phone buzzes. I really like an app called OneSec, which is something that has like when you set it up for whatever apps you have challenges with, and then whenever you open that app, it tells you to take a deep breath. You take a long, deep breath, and then it shows you how many times you've tried to open the app in the last 24 hours. And then, like, you can decide whether you actually want to go in or not. And then it asks you your intention of why you're going into the app when you do. I think there are other versions of competitors too, that like offer time limits to kick you out after a certain time. Something called Opal, I think, does that too. But things like that, I think, have been very, very helpful in my own life as well. And then a big one, I think, is also just a physical alarm clock, not having your phone be the thing that wakes you up in the morning. And first thing in the morning, trying to not just like immediately have the temptation while you're groggy into all of these truncated messages and ways that you're behind. So yeah, those are, I think, three that are some of the best ways of managing in my own life I have found.
Beautiful. What would you say to someone who is like, sounds like a lot, sounds hard, to like get a physical alarm clock and not touch your phone? And what would you say to them?
I would say alarm clocks are $8 on Amazon. And it is hard. It's hard to not touch your phone. That's why the alarm clock is better than just trying to have this. Or if you can just do it on self control, I'd be impressed. But you're better at that than me if you can. And I find it way more useful to have it be in the other room and at least just wake up, think your own thoughts in that first thing and first moment.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of playing devil's advocate for all the people who are really deeply struggling, and that just makes me want to ask, like, why is it why would I do this, like, this harder path, this harder road?
And I mean, if they don't want to, then don't. But like, I would ask, like, yeah, like if they're deeply struggling, that sort of is the why. If you're struggling, you're feeling the pain of this. And so it's about doing something different to shift that pattern.
Exactly. Very well said. Thank you for sharing.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and wrap up the podcast. But one more question for you, Max. If you could leave anything with our listeners with one core insight, or a couple if you have a few, about how to stay human in this new AI driven world, what would it be?
Yeah, I think it's really getting as clear as you can with what's important to you and like how you actually want to spend your time. And the constant mindfulness exercise of every time that we're using it, asking, is that in service of this? Like, is this helping me live the way I want to live, be who I want to be spending my time doing the things that I want to be spending my time doing? And if the answer is no, then trying to shift that. And then also being gentle with ourselves that it's hard. Like it is hard. The systems are pointed not in that direction. So we're gonna fall down and get back up again. And the other thing I would say is like don't underestimate social accountability. Like all the things that we do to try and navigate this ourselves, it goes way further if you pick one friend and you're checking in at the end of each week or month or whatever it is, and you can come up with fun punishments of like, If you go on the app more than 15 times, up, okay, you have to dump a bucket of water on your head. Like, I don't know, whatever it is. But like that social accountability really does go a long way.
Amazing. Thank you.
Before we close, Jeff, I just want to give Max an opportunity to kind of shout out what you're working on most passionately right now, whether that's social awakening or something else, and then how people can find you, connect, follow.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm most passionate about, like, social awakening feels like a duty that I am devoted to, and that feels also like that's running. Like, if you want me to come into a school, that we're probably looking at like spring of next year now, because that gets booked up really far in advance. What I'm and like, speaking opportunities you can come in through social awakening. But what I'm most passionate about is this show that I've created called It's a Miracle. And I performed it in New York, did 6 shows that went really well. And I'm trying to figure out what the next life for that is. Eventually, that'll be turned into a special and shared on the internet. But right now, just the theater world is a complicated, strange one. And I'm looking for, like, it's like theater is a weird, expensive world, and looking for help making that happen. And so that's what I'm most passionate about at this moment.
Very cool. What's the show about?
Um, it is about, I mean, I actually think a fun way of introducing it is from, it opens with a story that was inspired by something I heard from Wayne Dyer, which is that in a mother's womb were two babies, and one turns to the other and says, "Do you believe in life after delivery?" And of course, the other one quickly retorts, "There has to be something after delivery. Maybe we're here getting ready for what will be." What? Seriously? It's outrageously silly. There's no life after delivery. What kind of life could be after delivery? "I don't know," said the second, "but there'll be more light than here. Maybe we'll run and skip and dance and jump and play and laugh and breathe and love. Maybe we'll walk with our legs and eat with our mouths. Maybe we'll have other senses we can't understand now." "Well, that's awfully impossible," the other one scoffs. "Oh, we'll walk with our legs and we'll magic, we'll stay up, and we'll eat with our mouths? Come on, that's dumb. The umbilical cord supplies nutrition, and you see this cord? It's far too short. There's no life out there, of course." "But maybe it's just different than it is here," the other implored. "Maybe we won't need that physical cord anymore." "Nonsense," said the first. "And furthermore, if there were life after delivery, I'm sure that someone would have come back to report. Delivery is the end of life, and in the after delivery, it's nothing. It's darkness, it's silence, oblivion, infinite. Better know that now so you can deal with it." "Well, I don't know," the second baby uttered. "But certainly we'll meet Mother, and she'll take care of us." "Mother?" replies the other. "You actually believe in Mother? If Mother exists, where is she now?" "And she's all around us," said the second, eyes big. "We are of her. It is in her that we live. Without her, this world would not and could not exist." "I don't see her," the first insisted. "Sure seems like she just doesn't exist." "Sometimes," replied the second, "when you're in silence, you can perceive her presence. You can hear her loving voice calling down from above. If you really listen, you can perceive her presence. You can hear her loving voice calling down from above." And so it's like an exploration of life after delivery and God and consciousness and death and psychedelia. And yeah, I'm very proud of it
Very
as
cool. That deserves a
it
clap.
explores those ideas. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, good luck with that. That's amazing to hear about, and you just did a great job of expressing it and performing. So amazing. Max, thank you so much for joining us today on Beyond Evolution. You really shared some good insights on how human beings can really focus internally on how we can best use technology and truly what we can do in our control to set us up for the best future possible, working together alongside it. So thank you so much. Yeah. Anything to say, you two?
Just thanks, man. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for everything you've done and you're doing and will continue to do. Happy to be connected and keep going.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for caring about these issues.
Awesome. We always like to end our podcast by just reminding you guys that while this world of AI and what it means for humanity beyond evolution can be exciting yet uncertain, it's a journey of growth. So keep learning, keep evolving, but also allow yourself to just be. Thanks so much.